All right, so we'll come back to the Socrative bell ringer. This section of the lesson, remember we said last class, marriage is a total gift to self. It's the most intense commitment you can make to somebody. It's part of the reason why you can only marry one person is because you can only give all yourself to that one person. It's the most intense, intimate relationship two human beings can have. That's one way to define it. The details of which, of course, as you recall, are it's a comprehensive mind-body union, which leads to procreation, domestic life, calling for this permanent and exclusive union. Today, what we're going to talk about in the realm of chastity is why sex is most fitting, most appropriate, only appropriate within marriage. But we have to define some terms first, because a lot of you are confused on terminology. Who can give me a working definition for chastity?
Saving yourself for sex before marriage. Yeah, I did like don't have sex before marriage. Chastity.
Don't have sex before marriage? Okay. Mr. Peo is a married man. Say I go home and I look at pornography. Am I having sex before marriage? No. Am I chaste? No. So that means chastity has to apply to even married people. But what is it? But what is chastity? You were always taught, oh, y'all aren't married yet. Don't have sex till you get married. Practice chastity. And what we're going to define later on this slide is abstinence. That's abstinence. The practice of abstaining from having sex till you get married. That's abstinence. But chastity is bigger. Chastity is a bigger umbrella, which involves using your sexual faculties for their intended purpose, according to God's plan. Chastity is a virtue which allows us to control and use our sexuality for its intended purpose. Chastity is the virtue which allows us to control and use our sexuality for its intended purpose. And it's important that you recognize right now that every single person walking around on the earth, married, single, whatever other category, everybody needs chastity. Everybody, every married person, every single person, every dating person needs to adequately control their sexual desires. Every human being needs to control their appetite, basically. It's not good for you to eat unhealthy food all the time. It's not even good to have fast food all the time. You need temperance. Temperance is a virtue which allows you to control your appetite. Chastity is the virtue which allows you to control your sexual appetite, if you will. It's a virtue that says, I'm in control. I may want to act sexually, but I'm strong enough. Virtue is a strength. I'm strong enough not to act sexually when I'm tempted to do so. I'm in control. I'm in control. Chastity, because it's a virtue, it's a strength of soul. All right. So that goes for everybody. Every priest needs it. Everybody. Celibacy is when you intentionally do not marry and therefore you intentionally are not engaging in any sexual activity so that you can serve God's kingdom. That's what celibacy is. It is virginity for God, basically. So priests do not marry or engage in sexual behavior so that they can be present, to God's people and serve them alone. Celibacy is renouncing marriage and sexual activity, you might add, for the sake of the kingdom of God. And then Abstinence is actually, we already talked about abstinence a little bit. Abstinence, we talked about in the related to baptism. When you baptize, you're expected to abstain at a certain age from food, from meat on Fridays. Well, so it's actually abstaining from any good or anything really. In this case, you are used to hearing it in relation to sex, so you're encouraged to abstain from sex until you're married. That's abstinence. And if you can do that, you probably have some level of chastity. But if you're like, okay, I'm not going to have sex, don't want to get my girlfriend pregnant, and you're looking at pornography every day of the week, you ain't chaste. You don't know how to control and rightly order your sexual appetite. Um, you know, and the list goes on. Okay. So now that we got our terms right, I'm gonna drill that chastity definition into you just like the marriage definition. It's very important. You understand that you always need chastity. You always need to be in control and be bigger than your sexual desires. I've already said that. You don't necessarily need to write down this last part. All Christians who are not married are expected to be abstinent, basically, unless you're in a married relationship. And even if you are in a married relationship, if you don't want to have kids, if I don't want to have any more kids, I need to abstain from sex as a married man, frankly. Abstinence and that level of control, it never leaves you. So I know a lot of you, in fact, probably most of you, you have this view of chastity that like, oh man, if I could just hold on, not screw up, like until I get married, that'd be great. But you need to be able to control yourself even when you're married. What's going to happen when you want to have sex but your spouse doesn't? Like you need to see your spouse and be able to control yourself and to authentically love them. All right. Anyway, so now more on that to come. But I want to see. I want to see what you know. Tell me your thoughts on sex outside of marriage. I think it's morally not acceptable to have sex before marriage because you should marry so you and your spouse can have children, not just for the pleasure of it. Okay. You need to think about your children, not pleasure. The wording of this question makes it impossible to have a logical answer. Morally acceptable means acceptable in the eyes of the church. No. It is morally unacceptable to go kill some random person on the street. That's morally unacceptable. We all agree on that? Yeah, that's nothing. The church would agree with that, but so would the U.S. government, which makes it illegal to kill anybody. So that's what the term morally acceptable or unacceptable means. Any response I give would be overpowered because those words. However, personally, I think it is up to each person when they are ready to have sex. We live in an age of technology, so most people have access to learn both sides of this argument. Also, I think every person is entitled to believe or not believe in the church, as well as its teachings. Amen. Meaning, people fundamentally disagree with the concept of saving sex for marriage. People are entitled to that entirely. You are entitled to it, whether you're Catholic, Christian, or atheist. Everyone's entitled to everyone's opinion. You have the right to act on it or not act on it. You have the right to go and view pornography and masturbate every day you get home, or you have the freedom to not. It's up to you. I ain't telling anybody what to do. I'm telling you what the Bible would suggest. I'm going to give you some good reasons not to do those things. You go leave, walk out that door, do whatever you want. You know, it's your life. I'm just a teacher. I'm just one of a million teachers you're going to have in your life. I'm not telling anybody how they should live. I'm communicating to you the gospel of Jesus Christ. So that's what I mean by is it morally acceptable to have sex or not? Because there's consequences, and whoever wrote this has the idea that there are serious consequences. Because what you say is somebody should decide for themselves whether or not they should have sex, which means that there could be times when you probably shouldn't be having sex, and there's times where maybe yeah, sure, go ahead, it's no big deal. So there is. You suggest in this answer that there is even a right time or a not right time Perhaps. And even that would require some serious thought on whatever person. So I think we might agree more than you realize. I don't see why it's that bad. When God made everyone, he intended for sex to be pleasurable. So I don't see how you can expect to avoid sex until marriage. There's a lot of things that are pleasurable. Heroin's pleasurable, I hear. I don't take that. Marijuana is a very natural substance. Sure, it's pleasurable. I'm not going to do it. I don't think pleasure should guide us on what we do. What happens if you do that? Addiction. And yes, I have relatives in my family who have attended Sexaholics Anonymous because that is a real group, because sex is a real addicting thing. And pornography is highly addictive. So, I like to think that the human person can operate with pleasure, yes. We should enjoy. I love. Last night, man, I had a grade one more section of tests. Had a grade period 7. Opened some dark chocolate peanut M&Ms, and those things take care of me on a bad day. That was pleasurable. That was enjoyable. Nothing wrong with that. But if that's all I had to eat, I'm probably not going to live very long. If that's like my daily dinner, you get the idea. I'm asking what should guide. When you sit down to eat, you got to be thinking about your health. You got to be thinking about what's going to sustain me as I have to study late into the night tonight. And you have to think about, the sport teams. You have to think about a lot of things. When you have sex, I'm asking, what are you going to think about? You're just going to say, hey, it's pleasurable. All right. I think it's morally acceptable to have sex before you marry because it is the person's right to choose when they are ready for it and their right to believe in whatever their religion, or not religion for that matter, teaches. Some people might want to wait for marriage, or others might not follow their religion and do it before marriage. That's true. But all you said is there's no right or wrong. It's just for when you decide to have it. Whoever you are, or anybody in this room who wants to answer this question, you know how it was in 5th grade when you had your first girlfriend or boyfriend. Does anybody in this room want to say that those 5th graders should be having sex? Nobody. Sophia?
He does not speak for me.
No, I want all of you today, in this glorious moment in Mr. Peyo's class, to say 5th graders should not be having sex with each other. We agree on something. Woo! Which means there's got to be some sort of category. There's got to be some sort of guidance to when you should have sex. And not only that, but if this is your kid and you're a parent and you tell your kid, all right, I'm going to let you decide when you have sex when you feel like it's ready. Listen, my 8th grade girlfriend, that's what her parents told her. My 8th grade girlfriend. Okay? So that was my first girlfriend. It wasn't much of a relationship. It did last a while, as distant as it was. That being said, she told me, she goes, my parents are fine with it. She says, if I trust you, and I trust you, she told me. Y'all are like, weird. And I was kind of like, weird. Maybe she had a bad idea, and she was ready and willing. We never did it. But I was just like, you're in 8th grade. What do you know about trusting another person with your future child? What do you know about that? Nothing. You know nothing about that. You have no business having sex in 8th grade. So how about we say no 8th graders should be having sex today? Who's with me? Yeah. Sophia's not clapping. Come on. All right, so we got it in high school. High schoolers, those freshmen, they should be free to decide for themselves. Yeah, we can walk this all the way up to juniors. Y'all aren't comfortable saying those freshmen should be able to have sex whenever they decide to feel it, because it's going to screw them up. It's bad for their relationships. It's going to get them pregnant eventually. All right. I'm less than edified by the answers I have so far, period 1. Less than edified. You're entirely entitled to believe this. You do not have to. I'm hoping for a little bit deeper thought than just do it whenever you want to feel like doing it. People show their love in different ways. Sex is a form of union. Having sex, you show your love and unity to your partner. Okay? Because it's funny. Look at that answer. Let me X out that one. X out that one. Just compare the two that you can read. This person says sex is pleasurable. Do it when you want to have the pleasure. This person says do it out of love. Do you think there's a contradiction there? Because this is how it goes. A lot of times in the girl's mind, oh yes, I love this special person. We shall have sex. We are going to be together forever. He's very special to me. And the guy says, this is what I want to do. This is pleasurable. Is that love? Hell no. But look at it. I mean, you're two lines apart. You have the same moral code for different reasons, and they collide. Because if I want pleasure, I'm thinking about myself. If I want to love somebody else, I have to say maybe this isn't best for them. That's colliding right there. Same moral view. And theoretically, you could be a couple. Not that anybody in this room is dating each other, but think about the complexities of that. I think you have more of a respect aspect if you wait till marriage. I feel like your marriage will also last a lot longer if you wait till marriage. All right. I think that's the first person that says wait till you get married. Maybe second. Maybe second. All right. Believe that you can't have sex before marriage because the church says so. That's not a very good reason. I'm not convinced. Because I really want to have sex as a high schooler. I do. It's natural. And in most other cultures and societies throughout the history of the world, y'all are married right now. But now you're expected to wait. It's hard. And to be told, hey, the church says no. If you want to be a good Christian, do not have sex. Do not have sex. Isn't that what your parents say? Have your parents giving you much more than that? Do not. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. You have to not just say, oh, I'm Catholic, so I don't have sex till I get married. I am Christian. I want to love authentically. I want to be in a solid marriage. So when I give my body, I want it to mean something. That's what you got to get to a point where it's not because your church says so, your religion says so. It's because you're convinced that it's morally right. But let me tell you, you've all been lied to. Your Catholic education has failed you in a lot of ways because I do this every year. I teach juniors on the subject, and I say, what have you been taught about this? Give me a good reason. And it's not your fault that your answers so far are really crappy. It's not your fault. You haven't been taught this. And you have a right to be upset about it because it's hard to not have sex. It's very important to not have sex. And yet nobody in your life has given you a good reason not to do it. And you get tired of just being told don't do it. You say it's pleasurable and I want to experience some love. And so you do it, half of you. So my heart goes out to you. I wrote this whole lesson from scratch. I don't know if we're even going to get into it today, but you see the problem? You've been told something and you've never been told why. You've never been given a room to embrace it. All right? Because really so far, this one's pretty good. This one's pretty good. But I don't know, what's that, 1 out of 10? Maybe 2 out of 10. When people have sex before marriage, most guys leave the girl. When you wait until you're married, the guy and the girl are more likely to actually stay together and have a family together rather than the guy just ignoring and dumping. Maybe that's because the guy just wanted the pleasure all along. When he gets tired of the pleasure or there's another girl with better features that he likes, he's ready to move on because that sex will be better. You see, ladies, how you are harming yourself if you allow that to happen. You allow him to treat you like that. And how are you going to know? It's the only way to know is if you say no sex. That's the only way. He can buy you flowers, take you out to date 3 times a week. Sushi mama all day long. But he could still not love you at all. I don't think it's morally acceptable to have sex before marriage because I believe it's the greatest form of love. And it shouldn't be used for pleasure, but it is used for pleasure, frankly. So we got to figure that one out. I think that I'm right on the edge about my beliefs. Join the club. I think that waiting until marriage is an awesome thing and something I could see myself doing, but I also believe that it's an action that's okay as long as you and your partner have a strong foundation and relationship with each other. Okay. Church teaches that sex should be between two humans unite and become one. We only do that. Okay, church teaches that. But what do you think? Confirmed Catholic or almost confirmed Catholic? I do not think it's morally acceptable to have sex before marriage because your sex is a sacred thing and should be saved for someone that you will be in a relationship with for the rest of your life. I want to know why, though. Because you date somebody for a month or two and you're still years away from marriage, you're going to want to have sex on a Friday night. The church teaches that it's not morally acceptable to have sex before you're married. Thank you for letting me know. I think it's not morally acceptable because it's biblically labeled as sin. Jesus said so. I don't really know what to say about this. Thank you for your honesty. It's not morally acceptable to have sex before marriage because I think my YouTube channel is going to get a lot of likes after this one. It's morally acceptable to have sex before marriage because you might want to end the relationship, but she's pregnant. He's actually one of the best tennis players in the world, Alexander Zverev. He's got one ex-girlfriend claiming domestic abuse. His next girlfriend says, we just broke up, and then I found out I'm pregnant. So he goes, I guess we got to work things out. Yeah, awkward. The pregnancy is a factor. You could use contraception, but they have serious side effects, I would like to add. And none of them are 100% effective. None of them. I do think it's morally acceptable to have sex before marriage, only if you stay with and get married to that person forever. So it's homecoming, and let's pretend there's a dance, and you go and have sex after homecoming. Oh, well, looks like I just got married. I have to. We had sex. We have to stick together. That'll be a happy life. I don't really believe strongly one way or another. Sweet. When you look for a spouse, St. Paul says to the Thessalonians, look for one that is holy, look for one that is honorable, look into their soul, don't look at their body so much. That's the answer. Yes. Yeah, everyone's beautiful on the inside. The person itself is not their body sex. Okay. All right. Back to the PowerPoint. 3 reasons to save sex from marriage. Here they are. Number 1. And number 1 is not because the church said so. Number 2 is not because the Bible said so. It's because it's what's best for you. And I love you, so I'm going to give you the hard lesson. Number 1 is that virginity decreases your likelihood of divorce. If you can marry as a virgin, statistically speaking, you have a low percentage chance of getting a divorce. Guys, you marry as a virgin, your divorce rate is 63% lower. Women, if you can marry as a virgin, your divorce rate is 76% lower. That's big. And if the marriage statistics go like this, for those of you watching virtually by the hundreds, I'm drawing on the board that the divorce rate is, 50%. If we talk about it's being lowered in the neighborhood of 70%, you can marry as a virgin. Of those people, you're looking in the neighborhood of about 10% divorce rate. Okay? So I take a poll on Socrative right now and say, which one do you want? A 10% chance or a 50% chance? Lord have mercy. I hope every one of you says 10% chance. I say, okay, don't have sex for until you're ready to tie the knot. Ooh. Why is this the case? Why do the statistics say getting married as a virgin is better for your marriage? Tell me logical reasons.
Like you don't have to focus on their body. Like you're focusing on the person.
Very good. I think that's actually on a future slide. You're focusing more on the person. Okay, so here we have to fill our time with other things than cuddling on a couch, which just naturally leads to sex anyways. You have to be intentional. You have to go out on dates, etc., etc. More on that to come. Oh, this is a second study. The odds of divorce are lowest with 0 or 1 premarital partners. Check out these stats, and that'll help answer the question I asked y'all. You don't have to write anything down. Just put your pen down and learn. This is women who have had more non-marital sexual partners are less likely to be in a stable marriage. So now we're not even just talking about divorce or staying married. We're talking about just being in a stable marriage. It's not abusive, basically. If you have 0 partners, you're likely to be in a stable marriage is nearly 90%. It's right there. Like married as a virgin, committed. You know, your spouse is trustworthy because you weren't having sex while you were getting married. They showed some self-control. You had one partner, you had sex with one person other than your current spouse, it drops almost 30% likelihood. Why? Because you had sex with somebody else, you bonded with them, it was deep, it was intimate, and then you broke it off. And so you have to ignore that. And so the bond that you have with your spouse, if you were supposed to only have sex with them, you don't have that bond. You had it with somebody else. And so there's not a deep connection. Not only that, but you learned how to break it off. You learned how to ignore that bond. And so you're not as committed naturally. Two partners, it's nearly the same. 3 partners, we're dropping 4, 5, 9 partners, 10 to 20 partners, 21 plus partners. You have a 20% chance. You have a 20% chance of being in a stable marriage. You laugh. Some of you are giggling under your masks. I want you to do some math. Party city in colleges, right? LSU's had a breakout of COVID because college kids don't care. They're going to party anyways. You go to a party, you drink, you have fun, you often hook up and have sex. This is a bi-weekly, sometimes tri-weekly thing for people. Let's take a somewhat conservative student. I'm only going to hook up twice a semester. Twice a semester, that's 4 months. You're only going to have sex 2 times. That's a lot of discipline. But we're going to go with that. 2 times over the course of 4 months. How many semesters in a bachelor program? Ooh, there's 2 semesters in a year. How many years of college? 4. So 2 partners, 4 years, but then you got to multiply it again by 2 because you got 2 semesters. You're talking a very disciplined person in college is going to graduate with a diploma, degree, 16 sexual partners, and probably a few STDs. And where's the status with their future marriage? Not looking too good. That puts them in the about 20 to 30% chance range of being in a stable marriage. That's just the world we live in. And we wonder why the divorce rate's 40, 50%. Because sex doesn't mean anything. Sex is for pleasure. So just do it when you have pleasure. Well, then why is it ruining our marriages? Because it's pleasurable. Because that's what we look at. That's what we practice. That's what it's for. And then you're going to be married. You're going to want to have that pleasure with your spouse. Your spouse is going to say, no, I'm pissed off at you. I don't want to have sex. And you're going to be pissed off at them. And there it goes. Okay? Sex matters. Sex matters. All right. These are similar statistics. Women's premarital sex partners by marriage. The sex partners you see, this is to show you that the amount of women having multiple partners is increasing from, well, the 70s it had a nice big jump. But as you go further on into the 2010s, I mean, it's like double what it was even in the 70s. As far as 10 plus partners, the 70s, y'all, 2%, 4%, 10%, 14%, 18% of women have had that many partners. That's 2010. Let's see what 2020's got. I don't know. Maybe a pandemic will push us back, from each other. I don't know. Oh, you do have to admit, look at the survey numbers. They did survey a lot less in that, but you see the trend. It's only going up with thousands of people surveyed. So it's obviously not good for our future marriages, and marriage is the foundation of society. Number 2. Matthew Laverne. If you can't stay awake for sex, I don't know what it's going to take. Number 2, sex before marriage weakens mental health and social status. It's not good for you as a person. The younger a girl is, when she becomes sexually active, the more likely she is to experience more sexual partners. So those 5th graders that you believe shouldn't be having sex, the sooner they start, the more partners they're going to have. The more partners they're going to have, the more STDs, the more pregnancies, the higher levels of depression. Of course, abortion, because pregnancies lead to abortion when we don't want them. And poverty. Poverty. This is a big one. There's like 3 keys out there. I should have gotten this. Maybe I'll look for it over the weekend. By weekend, I mean tonight. My dad told me this, that there's 3 key factors in America to staying outside of poverty. It's to maintain a full-time job, even if it's at McDonald's. If you just maintain a full-time job, that's one thing. I forget the second thing, but the third thing was don't have kids till you get married. It's a huge factor in your economic strength the rest of your life. Why are some communities stuck in poverty? Because they're having kids at the age of 15 and 16 when they can't actually provide for them. So they spend all the time in their life when they should be saving up money, ready to tackle the world. It's all going into the diapers and the baby food, and that's where it should be going when you have a kid. But it really sets you back financially. Yeah, and so it's hard to get your family out of poverty when you're starting a family before you have a full-time job and you're not out of high school yet. Very hard. All right. So there's a lot of reasons not to have sex here, but frankly, sex is like a drug. Sex is very much like a drug. It releases dopamine in your brain just like drugs do. Hence why it's addictive, just like drugs are. Pornography, masturbation, sex, all addictive in different ways. You experience this high, right? This happiness, this moment. Probably feeling a little bit guilty and not quite as happy the next morning, right? Just like alcohol, just like drugs. And you expect to go back to that to get your high after a while, and it doesn't maintain the relationship. It doesn't help you in that relationship at all. It doesn't help you know the person. After a while, you start to feel used. The guy shows up and he's just expecting sex, and that's all you get that night. All the above, and we wonder why it causes depression. The same way that your excessive use of alcohol and drugs is going to cause depression. Why? Because they're antidepressants. They're fake drugs that make you pretend that you're happy, make your brain think that you're happy when you're actually not. You come down off that high, you're more depressed than when you started. So if you don't want to be depressed, don't have sex. You'd be a lot happier of a person if you weren't addicted to pornography right now. Amen? Good. Nobody said amen. All right. We got that one. Number 3. We've already talked about this a little bit. Mr. Peo and the Catholic Church fully expect you to want to have sex. We need to say that and recognize that more. But of course, that desire is often largely selfish because it's for the pleasure of it. It's really hard to say, like a couple dating, like, oh, I'm having sex for you just because I love you. Like, really? I mean, really? You're not getting anything out of it, hombre? You know? Anyway, so it's like, it's that continual denial of setting boundaries, telling yourself, no, it's not appropriate. It's not the best for our relationship. It's not best for my girlfriend's mental health. It's not good for our future marriage. It's not good for our future children. And the list goes on. When you have to tell yourself that, and you do, and you convince yourself of it, what are you doing? You are training your naturally selfish person, because we're all naturally selfish. It's called original sin. And you're telling yourself to think about your future family. Think about other people. Put other people in front of yourself. That's what it's about. And that is love. That is real love. It's a cheesy phrase, but chastity is for lovers. And it allows for an authentic love. Why? Because you're looking at a person. You're looking at their mental health. You're looking at their spiritual health. People in all states of life desire sex for themselves and their own pleasure. If a person is able to deny themselves this pleasure out of respect for the other, it trains them to think of the other before themselves, to give before they take. And this is what love looks like.